What's up YouTube, and welcome to another draw along with me. Now today we've got this baby Yoda design. Now today's tutorial is primarily focused on drawing line work. So I've actually included a stencil that's in the description down below that you can use to sort of use as a guide for your line work. The line work, we want to focus on these beautiful soft entries with the nice little tapered look on it, creating these nice smooth lines and running them out in exactly the same fashion. So as always, be sure to check out the requirements down below for the palette, the canvas size, and anything else that I've used in today's tutorial. So have some fun with it and be sure to share your designs with me over on Instagram when you're done. There's links to all my socials in the description down below. And with all that said, let's get started. So once we've created our canvas, first thing we're going to want to do is change the background color. Now we do have an empty layer within our layers, so we're going to use that. We're going to go to our colors, and over here on the far right hand side we've got two greens. We're going to grab the dark one first of all and then drag and drop it onto the canvas. If you zoom out a little bit, and then we go ahead and change our color to the lighter green above it in that last column, and then go to your selection tool. We're going to use the rectangle option and we're going to use color fill, and we're just going to draw a box that covers the top half of the canvas, so roughly something like that. Tap on your selection tool when you're done, and then go to your adjustments, Gaussian blur, and swipe from left to right till you hit 100%. And that will just create a nice gradient to sit in the background. Now we need to go ahead and add the stencil in. So for this, we're going to go up to our actions. We're going to go ahead and hit the option of add, and we're going to insert a photo. Now once you've found the stencil, it's going to be white, so it's going to be hard to see in your images, but it's here for me. I'm going to tap on that and insert it into the canvas, and then we've got our stencil. Now if you want to, you can go ahead and go to your layers, tap on the layer and lower the opacity right down so you can just vaguely see it to something maybe about sort of 20%, so you can just stay nice and focused on your own lines. Now we're going to go ahead and do exactly that. We're going to draw in the lines. Now we're going to create all the lines first and then fill it in with different colors. So we're going to go up to our layers. We're going to create a new layer above the stencil guide. We're going to go to our colors and grab this sole color up here. So it's the 5th column along, but it's the top color. And then we're going to go to our brush library, and I've left a link to this free collection of brushes. It's beautiful line work, and we're going to use line 1. Now just tap on it just to be sure and go to your stabilization, and you want to turn the streamline up to max, and you want to turn your stabilization to 66%. That will just mean all the lines that we draw will have a nice amount of nice smoothness to them, keep things nice and sharp. So let's take a look at the stencil and start drawing in the different lines. So I think the best place to start is the top of the head. Now we're going to make our brush size roughly around about sort of 15% to start with. Bear in mind this brush is very pressure sensitive, so the harder you press you're going to get a nice thick line, and the lighter you press you get a nice thin one. So just take a look at the pressures that I'm adding in terms of how thick my lines are, and you can then match it up to your own. We're going to start with the top of the head, and we're just going to create that first line at the top there. Then we can go ahead and draw in the bottom of the face. And you want your line work at the end, you want to just let go of the brush and just let it run out until you end up with these really nice sharp points on either end. Keep your design nice and tidy. We have 3 little hairs at the top here, so we're just going to draw them in, and you can see as I let go towards the end, we're getting a nice little point on the end there. We've then got some creases on the forehead. We want to be nice and light here and just create these little creases on the forehead like so. We then want to go ahead and draw in the eyebrows, all the creases of them. And let's do the eyes. Now the eyes, you can do it in 2 sort of movements. You can do the underside if you want, like so, and then go around the top and just link that up at the end. And you can leave a little flick on the end if you like, and just make sure your lines nicely link up. You can actually drag and drop the color in at that point. Let's then do the same over here. Just create the underside of the eye. And again, I'm just going to go around the top like so, and then drag and drop the color in. And again, you'll end up with those nice little creases on either side. The mouth, we can do it in 2 steps. We can go around the bottom, and then we can go over the top. So we just create that sort of M shape to the mouth. And again, you can drag and drop the color in. And the nose is just a nice oval in the middle, like so. We zoom out, we've already got the face in place. Now we're going to move on to the ears. Now we want to let our line run from the head and just continue out over the ear and then link back up into the face. run out over the ear like so, into the head, create the crease on the inside of the ear. Moving across to the other ear, we can then just run that line over the top, down and into the side of the head. And again, a little crease in here, so just across here and then down here. So we're just focusing on our line work, make sure it's nice and clean. Let's move on to the body here. So I'm going to start on the outside. I'm going to create one nice curl there. We're then going to go round the side of the hand. So we're going to go around here and just let that run into the body. And again, just let your brush run off nice and thin into a trail and then go around the hand like so. Again, if we were to start down here, we're going to create a nice thick line and run it into the feet. And then with the feet, we can go ahead and start roughly here. We can go across and then up and over, creating like an M shape. And then let that run down into the end of that toe. So that's one line there. And then with the feet, you can go ahead and either start here, create a toe, follow those lines to end up with one foot. And let's go ahead and continue on the right hand side. So we're going to create one curl here. We're then going to go around the hand here, and let that line run in a little bit. And go around the outside of the hand. Let's then go ahead and do this line here. Runs onto the top of the foot. And then we've got this long wavy line here, which just runs all the way down onto the top of the foot. And then let's go ahead and do the outer foot first. So into here. Let's then create the middle one. And then the final one here as well. Just letting that run back in to the body. We've then got all these nice little details on the inside. So we've got this little collar here around the jacket. So we want to let our line get nice and heavy towards the middle part of the line. So we just add some nice thickness in there. We then add like a nice little flick down here. And then the main sort of zip area, I presume, of the middle. Then let's add the creases in. So you want to create a nice little flick here. And again, just let your brush run out into a nice point. And then here we can create a nice little flick as well into the middle of the jacket. Another one here, just where it's creasing. And another one here. Let's then go over this line. And again, you just want to just make your pressure nice and thick towards the middle of the line. And then let it run out into a point. And again, we'll create a line here, a nice little crease, run that into those. And then there's a tiny little one that I've added just at the top there. If we take a look quickly while we're here at the hands, we just want to go ahead and draw in a line that runs straight across the middle. And then we want to create like two little curls either side. So we create one here and one here. And then we fill this gap in. So it's just shadow in this space here. Let's then do the same over on the left hand side. So we just create a nice line that runs across there. And again, a little flick and a little flick. And then fill this little gap in. And then we've got all of our line work added in. That's looking super smart. Let's then go ahead and start coloring in. So let's go up to our layers. And if you've not used the reference tool before, we're going to use that. So we're going to tap on our line work and we're going to use the reference option. It's fantastic for things such as this, where it's cartoons. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and delete the image. We don't need that anymore. Swipe it to the left and delete it. We're then going to create a new layer. And we're then going to go to our colors. Now what the reference will do is it will use the line work as it says, the reference for the rest of the layers. And then when we drop our color in, it's going to use that as a guide as to what to fill in. So let's take a look at our palette. We've got this column here. Now this is our line work. And then these two colors here are the base colors for the green areas and then the jacket. So let's do the green first. So it's the second color down in that, what's that, fifth column. We're going to go to our layers and make sure we're on this layer, this empty one. And we want to drag the green into the areas where it's relevant. So we're going to drag the green into the face. And you'll see there, it's used the line work as a guide. And this is nicely underneath the line work. We then want to drag it into the hands. So into this space, and this one. And then repeat on the other side to drag that color into those two gaps for the little fingers. And then do the same for the feet. So drag and drop the color into the feet. and then we've filled in all the correct areas with that color. Let's then do the same for the body, but we're going to do it on a separate layer. So just create a new layer. We don't have to do anything to it. We just go up to our colors and grab the base color at the bottom of this column here. So it's the 5th column, the bottom color. Drag that into the spaces of the jacket until you end up with this. And then we can move on to add in all the really cool details and highlights and shadows. So now we've colored that in, let's add the white accents first, because there's only a few of them. So we're going to go up to our layers and we're going to go above our line work and create a new layer. We're going to go to our colors and double tap in the top left hand corner to select white. And then we're going to go ahead and just add some little details on the nose. Now we're going to go ahead, and the first size we used was 15%, and you can create a little plus here, which is like a little memory. So that's the big line work. And then you can reduce your brush size down to 4% for the smaller line work. So I've dragged that down and I'll create a little plus there. And then for this, we're going to go ahead and add a nice little highlight on the top of the nose here. We're then going to go ahead and on the eyes, we just want to introduce little bits in the corners. And all we're going to do is match the curvature of the line work we've done. Press kind of firm in the corner and just let that run out. And then do the same here. So firm in the corner and let that run out. And that's all you need to do, is just to create the sort of iris look. And then in the top right hand corner, just add in a circle of light, just reflecting onto the top of the eye there. Then let's go ahead and repeat that on the other eye. So in the corner, we come down, we create a little bit of weight in the middle, and then run that out. We then do the same in this corner. And then add the little highlight on top of the eye, just like so. And if you zoom out, you'll then get a real idea for what that actually looks like for your little Yoda. Now there's one extra little element we need to add in, and that's just a little bit of a tongue. So we're going to go up to our colors. We're going to grab this pink that's on its own in the 2nd column. And in the middle, we're first of all just going to create a nice little curve on the top, and then a little curve on the bottom. And then that is your tongue for your little Yoda. So let's now move on to the highlights and shadows, and let's do the face first. So let's go to our layers, and we've got the green filled in layer here. We can simply tap on this layer, tap on it again and alpha lock it, and then we can go to our colors. Now we've got a highlight color beside the base of the green and a shadow color, which is actually slightly brown. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to work with the shadows first. We always work with shadows because we can then layer the highlights on top. So grab this color here in the 6th column, it's the 1st color but the 2nd one down, and let's then start adding in our shadows. Now our light source is over in the top right hand side, so we can then darken up the left hand side. So I'm going to increase my brush back up to the 2nd point above, so it's 15% again now, and we're going to start introducing some shadows. So we want to go first of all around the left hand side of the face, just let that run around the bottom. We then want to go ahead and go around the bottom of the eye here and just let that run out into that shadow on the left hand side. You see how we've got to keep these lines nice and curved, nice and smooth. We're then going to go ahead and go around the bottom of the eye here, like so, adding that little line. So it's thinner on this right hand side and gets a little bit thicker to the left. And then while we're here on this left hand side, I'm just going to introduce a little curve here of shadow and just introduce a lot more on that left hand side there. We then also want to introduce a shadow into the underside of the brow, so we're going to go up and around like so. And then maybe let's just thicken out the top area a little bit. Let's go around that, fill in that little gap. So we've got the shadows there nicely on the left hand side. We can then go ahead and take a look at what else we would shadow in. So just a little bit round here at the edge of the ear. So I'm going around there like so. And then for the inside of the ear, we're going to go ahead and go point to point like so. So creating like a little triangle and fill that in. And then we're going to go ahead and just introduce some little flicks in here. We're just going to continue on with this kind of line work we're doing, where it's got some nice sharp points on the end. So something like that looks quite nice. And then the only other shadow is just under here, underneath the bottom part of the ear there. So just under there. Let's then take a look at the right hand side as well, because this does have a couple of things in here. We need to create the triangle, of course. So we're going to go a little bit further than that, and then just create our little triangle in here. And then just as before, just create some sharper little points in there just to break up the solid shape. And then potentially just in here, a little shadow in there. And then a little shadow in there too. We then need to take a look at the rest of the design. So we need to look at the hands. So we're going to go ahead and just pretty much color in this entire little finger here, and then the top side there of the hand. And we're going to do the same on the top edge there. With the feet, of course, the toe before, or whatever it is, let's call it a claw or a toe. Let's just darken in that side there, and maybe the underside, just where it's touching the ground. Let's do the same on this side. So let's just go ahead and shadow in those little gaps, like so. Maybe even the top side where the jacket sat on top. And then the final little bit will go around the left side of the nose and just around the left side of the mouth. Now let's go ahead and move on to the highlights. So go up to your colors and grab this color here beside our base green. So this one here, it's the fourth column, this middle color. So the first place we want to add our highlights is the right hand side of the face. So start towards the top edge and go around this edge, around here, and then around the bottom. And then make sure that just runs into your lines like so. So I just needed to widen mine up a little bit there. Let's then copy basically the left hand side, but just bring in a little highlight there, and maybe just thicken that up towards the bottom of the face. In the center of the forehead, we want to create like a brow area. So we're going to come from the side over here, drop into the middle, and then go over the top of the other brow on the left. And then from this point here, we can simply just go straight across and just brighten up that whole forehead area there. We're then introducing another kind of like little flick there, just from the right, just adding in a nice little bit of that highlight color on the forehead. And then we're just going to do a little bit on the inside of the eye there, just like so. Now we can move on to the ears. Now for the ears, we're just going to go ahead and do the top area here. So go across here like so. And then I'm going to link this highlight into the highlight of the face. And then I'm going to go ahead and do a highlight just on the inside here as well, just letting that run out to the edge. And one more just in there, little flick. Let's then move over to the left hand side and do the top of the ear again. So a nice little highlight on the top there. And then just a little bit on the inside of the ear. So I'm just going to draw in a little bit of color, a little bit there. And then we've got our head done. We can then move on to the hands and kind of the sort of mirror image of this, but on the opposite side. So I'm going to highlight this and this entire finger here. So just this top area and this finger, and then just a little bit of highlight on there. If we zoom in and take a look at the toes, we're just going to sort of just add in a little highlight there, like so. And I think we'll just add the tiniest little one there. And then on this side, just I think on this big one and this one here. So I've gone over the top of my shadows there and just flicked it straight into a highlight. Now that's done with the green work. Now we can go ahead and work on the jacket. So you can see the kind of style we're working with. We've got a nice little flick sort of design to our highlights, and we're going to reflect that in the jacket too. So go up to your layers, and we're going to go up to the jacket colored in layer. We're going to tap on that layer and alpha lock it. We're going to go to our colors, and if we take a look again, this column here is our base colors, which means the colors to the left is the highlight and the colors to the right is shadow. So we've actually got two shadows. We've got a mid shadow and a full shadow, and we've only got one highlight color. So let's work with this color here. It's the third one out of those collection at the bottom there. And we're going to go ahead and paint in our shadow areas. So underneath the face, we're going to come across here and probably all the way across. Let's then also darken up under here too. So just leaving a little bit here where there's just the original color. Of course, we just want to go around this crease here as well. Run that across. And then we're going to do the underside of this crease here too. Just a little flick, possibly a little bit here as well. This is going to be the darker side of the design. I'm going to go ahead and run a shadow underneath this little flick and then really thicken out this left hand side. The underside of all of these creases you want to just darken up. So you want to be brave on this side. So just link them up if you want to. And then go across and under here. We've then of course got this flick here in the crease, so just let that run out like so. And then again, just let that run out under there. And possibly just introduce one that runs all the way down the inside of the jacket there. So that's darkened that up quite a bit, and we can go ahead and just introduce more little creases in here just to continue on the style. So I'm going to bring that one round a little bit more, and then up here too, I'm going to continue that on, just adding in a few there, even a little space for a highlight. Let's then go ahead and just introduce some more sort of creases in there, and that's the left hand side done. Let's work on the right hand side now, and we do have some shadows to add in. We're just going to add in one around the outside here. We're going to go around the bottom of this crease. So it's all about your line work. Start very light and then add some weight to the line. Where we've got this crease here, we can just pretty much let that run into the center of the jacket. And then the underside of the crease, of course, as well. So just going under here like that. We've got a crease at the top, so we could probably just run that straight into the jacket. And we've got a nice big space here to add in a nice highlight. The final one, just a little bit around that right hand side. So yours should just look something like that. So feel free to pause if you want to match up to that. And we're just creating those nice little flicks again, just to match up the whole style. We're going to go to our colors now and switch it out to the very darkest shadow. So this one here on the right of the bottom 4 set. And we're going to go ahead and darken up the thickest areas of shadow. So just go around this edge here. We're going to go around the left hand side completely, and then see where we can introduce some more darkness. So we've got quite a big area here, and it's also the underside of the face. So let's just run this round, and again, a nice little flick on the end. Nice little flick here, just to show the depth of this shadow. Go around here. I'm also going to go underneath the collar here and just let that run out. And that looks really cool when that starts to stagger on top of each other. We can then maybe just introduce a couple of little flicks in here from the center of the jacket. Again, let's just create some nice flicks from the center from this area. Underneath some of these creases, we can definitely get away with darkening them up. And you can just let that run all the way across if you want to. Let's then just add in some more here. Create some nice shadows in there. And the underside of this crease for sure, let's just darken that up and maybe even run that all the way to the left hand side. So you only leave like a little bit, but we have layered it completely on top of the mid shadow that we had before. So that's added in some really nice darker accents in there. If we take a look at the right hand side, is there any that we would introduce? Maybe just the tiniest little bit under here, and maybe the tiniest little bit in here too. And I think that would be everything. I don't think we can get away with any more. Let's then move on to our highlights, and they look really beautiful when you drop them in. Let's go to our colors, and on the bottom 4 collection of colors, we've got this one on the left. Now let's just focus on the right hand side to start with. We can bring in some nice big flicks, and you can see there I just started to overlap my shadow a little bit. That is not a problem. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning of this jacket phase, you want to overlap your highlights on top of your shadows anyway. Let's then just continue to create some nice flicks. I'm just letting go of the brush every time, creating these little flicks. It's going to add some nice detail in here. I think we can then maybe from the center of the jacket just create a nice little flick up from here, and then I think we'll just go backwards and forwards, creating a nice little highlight area in the center of the jacket. And if you want to, just fill out any areas where necessary. Potentially just a little bit here. Looking at that, that's looking lovely. Let's then go ahead and add some highlights though in this area. So don't be afraid just to go around there, and then on top of that again. Let's then do the same here, because the lighting is going to hit the top of the crease, so we can overlap our shadows a lot there. So just create one curve and then another curve as well, just over the top of this crease as well. Nice little bit of highlight, and then let's add in a little bit here too. We can add a little bit in here where the light's come in and hit in the side of the cuff. So just creating these little pointed sort of strips in there. And then zooming out, we've added all the highlights into our little baby Yoda. Now we can go ahead and give Yoda a nice little shadow underneath. So to do that, we're just going to go up to our layers. We're going to go in front of our background gradient and create a new layer. We're going to go to our colors and use the same as the line work, this one here. Brush size is still set to that 15%, and we're just going to darken up the underside of him first of all, and then flick that shadow out to the right hand side, just in the same way that we've been doing, so we get those nice little points on the end. Just add in a nice little shadow like so, pushing that off to the left hand side. And if we pinch with 2 fingers, let's zoom in a little bit and go full screen with 4, we end up with today's finished design. So I hope you enjoyed this baby Yoda design. As always, be sure to share your designs with me over on Instagram. There's a link to all my socials in the description down below. And if you did enjoy this tutorial, if you can drop a like, it helps the channel out a bunch. And if you're new here, I post Procreate content every single week, so hit that subscribe button down below. And as always, a massive shout out to all of my Patreon supporters. I'll throw their names up on the screen now. Patreon supporters get access to 3 exclusive tutorials every single month. I'll throw up the latest 3 that I've been posting over there, as well as early access to videos, sneak peeks of videos, and much, much more. So hit the link in the description down below and come and show your support. And if you're interested in any of the equipment I'm using, the Sketchboard Pro, you can use code JoelCreate to get yourself 10% off of one, or a Paperlike screen cover that I use, or the pen tips grip and glove. There's links to all my equipment in the description. And with all that said, I'll see you in the next one.